I'm now going to record Daf Ayin Gimel. We're up to Daf Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph, about 9 lines from the top, Itmer. The last thing we learned was a Machlokes Abaye v'Rava regarding Misasek. Misasek on Shabbos is Potter. Abaye is Machmer. Abaye says Misasek is only Potter if you intended to lift something, and instead of lifting it, you ended up with the knife cutting or harvesting something. So lifting and harvesting is two different pu'ulos, and you're misasek and you're potter. Rava was more mekel. Rava says even if you took the knife and cut a tomato, but you thought the tomato was not attached to the ground, and instead it was attached to the ground, you're also potter because that's also misasek, because you wanted to do a cut of heter, and you ended up doing a cut of iser. We're going to learn two more machlokes between Abaye and Rava regarding misasek. Itmer, it was said, if somebody wanted to throw an object for 2 amos b'rshus rabim, b'zorak arba, and instead he threw it for 4 amos, so Rav Amar Potter, Rava says you're Potter, and Abaye Amar Chayiv, Abaye says you're Chayiv. Rav Amar Potter, he considers that also misasek, because the loika mechaven l'zrika d'arba. His intent was to do an act of throwing something 2. It ended up he did an act of throwing something 4. So that's not the act that he intended, and therefore he's Potter. Abaye Amar Chayiv, Abaye says you're Chayiv doka mechaven l'zrika ba'alma, but he did intend to throw. So as long as he intended to throw and he threw, that's not called misasek. And the third and last case is Ksavar, a man thought he was b'rshus hayachid, he thought he was in a private domain, and he threw something for arba amis, v'nimtzes, and discovers that it was not a reshus hayachid, it was a reshus harabim. Rav Amar that he's potter, because that's called misasek, and Abaye Amar Chayiv, Abaye says that's not misasek. Rav Amar potter, Rav says you're potter, the loika mechav l'zrika d'isura. He did not intend to throw a throw of iser. Abaye Amar Chayiv, Abaye says you're chayiv, doka mechav l'zrika ba'alma. But he was intending at least to throw. So again, we have the dispute between Abaye, Rav, and Misasek in 3 cases. One had to do with the tomato, where according to Abaye, it's only Misasek if you wanted to lift and instead you cut. According to Rava, even if you intended to cut and ended up cutting, it's still called Misasek, because you wanted to cut a tomato that was not attached, and you ended up cutting a tomato that was mechuber. They also argue if you wanted to throw something for 2 amos per shusarab, you ended up throwing 4. Abaye is machmer, you intended to throw. So if you intended to throw, so you're a shoygig if it went 4. Rava says that it was not your intent to throw a throw of iser, and therefore you're potter, it's misasek. And also somebody threw arba amis and thought he was a reshus hayochid. Abaye says you're chayiv because you wanted to throw it 4 amis and you threw it 4 amis, but you're a shoygig. You thought it was a reshus hayochid and it was a reshus harabim. And Rava says you wanted to throw a throw of heter and you ended up throwing a throw of iser, and that's also called misasek. The Gemara says it's tzricha, we need them to argue in all 3 cases. The Yeshmina Kamais, if they would only argue with the case of the tomato, but who come Rava, the reason why Rava is lenient, the halakim mechav l'chaticha d'isura, because what he wanted to do is to slice a tomato. What he ended up doing was harvesting. So Rava considers that a different pu'ula, and he was misasek. But if he intended to throw something for 2 and he threw it for 4, since the arba v'lo tarti lo mizarkala, you can't throw 4 amos without throwing 2. So Ema would say, Moed leil Abaye, you would agree with Abaye that you're chayiv, because there the pu'ula that you did is what you wanted to do, but you did more of it. See, in the case with the tomato, the pu'ula that you did was harvesting, was totally not the pu'ula that you wanted to do, was slicing. But here, the pu'ula that you did, throwing 4 amos, included the pu'ula that you wanted to do too. So maybe that's close enough, and that's not called misasek. V'yashmina b'ho. And if Rava would hold that's also called misasek, I would say, b'ho kama Rava, the haloika mechav l'zrika d'arba. It's misasek because you still only wanted to throw 2, not 4. That's also called misasek. But if he thought he was in Reshus HaYochid and found himself in Reshus HaRabim, the mechaven l'zrika d'arba, where it was his intent to throw 4, and he threw 4, the only difference is he thought it was Reshus HaYochid and found that it was Reshus HaRabim. I would think he agrees l'Abaye to Abaye. It's tzricha. The Rava holds your potter for misasek, even though not only if the act is a different act, where you wanted to slice and you ended up harvesting, not only if the act is more than what you wanted to do, you wanted to throw 2 and you threw 4, that's also called misasek, but even if the act is exactly what you wanted to do, and the only difference was that you thought it was Rosh Hashanah and it ended up being Rosh Hashanah, that's also called misasek. Tanan, in our coming Mishnah, it says, Ovis Melachos are Arbam Chosar Achas. It's 39 Melachos. And then the Mishnah lists all 39. Vavina, so we ask, Minyan Alamali, why did you have to tell me how many there are? You can count them. The Mishnah lists all 39. Rabbi Yochanan says, Shem Asan Kulam Behelam Echad. If you did all 39, having forgotten that the 39 melachas are aser, chayiv, you'll be chayiv al kalachas v'achas. You can be chayiv 39 chatos. So Bishlam el Abaye, according to Abaye, how is it possible that you forgot all 39 melachas yet you knew it was Shabbos? Do'amar ki agavna, he says it's possible. Chayiv, do'amar ki agavna chayiv. He says that if you wanted to do a Maisa of Heter, and you did something similar, which is a Maisa of Isser Yechayiv, Mishkachas la have a case. The Yada, the Isur of the Shabbos, he knew it was Shabbos, and he even knew that you're not allowed to write on Shabbos. The Yada the Isur Malachas, and he knew you're not allowed to write. But the Kotah B'Shiurin, but he made a mistake, and he thought you're not allowed to write 4 letters, and instead he wrote 2 letters. So according to Abaye, that's not called Misasek, you're Chayiv. So therefore he knows it's Shabbos, he knows you're not allowed to write, but he's a Shaygig. Why is Abaye called him a shaygig? Because the shaygig, he thought that the Isser is on 4 letters and didn't know the Isser is on 2. He carried out. He thought the Isser was carrying out 2 Graigeres, and he carried out 1. So he's chayv achadas. Rava Damar Potter. Rava says that that's called misasek. How is it possible that he knows it's Shabbos, but he doesn't know the malachas are aser? If he doesn't know any of the malachas or aser, so what does he know about Shabbos? According to Abaye, what he didn't know was the shear. So that, according to Abaye, is called a shaygig. But according to Rava, not knowing the shear is going to be a misasik. So then, if everything is misasik, then how can he not? He doesn't know any malachas or aser. How does he know it's Shabbos? And we did this Gemara already 3 times. And don't tell me that maybe he knows you have to make Kiddush on Shabbos, or you have to make Avdol on Shabbos, or he knows the Mitzvahs Es on Shabbos. But if he doesn't know that there's any Malacha that's also on Shabbos, so then it becomes one global lack of knowledge that he doesn't know there's an Isser Malacha on Shabbos. So Hanicha, it would be good, Isav like Rabbi Yochanan. If he holds like Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says, Kivin Sheshogag Bekaris, Alf Bishhezid Belav. Rabbi Yochanan holds if a man knows the Malacha is Aser, and he knows you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos, but he doesn't know that if you do it b'meizid yechayiv kares. That's also called shaygig. So perfect. Mishkachas lo diyada lo l'Shabbos b'lav. He knows today's Shabbos. He knows there's a loisa say to do each and every one of the 39 melachas, but he doesn't know that each and every one of the 39 melachas carries a kares. That's called a shaygig. Elabad isavala Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. If we hold like Rabbi Shimon Lakish, the Amar, who says ad sheyishgag b'lav v'kares, that you're only a shaygig if you don't, if you didn't know that it's even prohibited. So if all 39 malachas, he didn't know they were prohibited, so he didn't altogether know that there's any isser of malacha b'Shabbos. So why is it going to be called 39 malachas? He has no idea that there's even an isser malacha on Shabbos. It's the yadlo Shabbos b'mai. So what does he know about Shabbos? Again, according to Abaye, he can know everything, but he didn't know the shear. If he didn't know the shear, that's called a shaygig. But according to Rava, if he doesn't know the shear, it's misasik. And if now add to that he doesn't know any of the malachas or aser, so what does he know about an iser malach on Shabbos? And for the Gemara, Yadla b'tchumen aliba de Rabbi Kiva. He knew that you're not allowed to go to chutz l'tchum, and Rabbi Kiva holds it's an iser deraisa. That's called knowing that it's Shabbos, knowing that there's a prohibition on Shabbos, that you're not allowed to go chutz l'tchum, but he didn't know that the 39 malachas are aser, and therefore he's chayav 39 chatois. Look at the Mishnah, famous Mishnah, Avos malachas are aboim chaser achas. Avos malachas are 39. Hazareya, to sow seeds, v'achayrish, and plowing. And the Gemara will discuss why the Mishnah has plowing after Zareya. Hakaitzer is harvesting, and Ma'amer is gathering tvua together. V'adash is threshing, crushing the straw and the stalks, and so that they separate from the seeds. V'azayir is then throwing it all up in the wind, so that the lighter straw and stalks blow away, leaving him the clean seeds. Habbayir, following up afterwards and picking out any psilas that's still mixed together with the seeds. Teichen, grinding those seeds into flour. Meraket, sifting the flour. Balash, mixing the flour with water to knead. Va'aifa, and baking. And those are the first 11 malachas of a sidura de pas, how you make bread. Then there are 13 malachas that have to do with making a garment. Hagaiz is zatzemer, shearing wool. Melabnai, washing it and cleaning the wool. Menaptzai means running your fingers through the fiber in order to separate the tangles of the fiber and many Rishonim hold that's also combing it. Tzayvai, dyeing it. Taiva, taking the fiber and twisting it into thread, spinning it into thread. V'hamesach. Mesach is setting up a loom which has two round poles that are apart from each other, and they have long threads going from one to the other. I'm going to try to describe this by remote control. After you have the loom set up and you have all the horizontal strings going from one roller to the other, then between the two rollers there are two squares. And these squares are standing vertically. And each square of these squares has, let's say, 10, let's call them metal vertical rods. So there's a square, and each square has 10 vertical rods. And there's two squares like that. Now again, I'm going to assume that the threads that go across horizontally from one roller to the other is 20. So we have 20 threads going across the horizontally from one roller of the loom to the other. And then in the middle, you have two squares. Each square has 10 wires that are vertical. On each wire, in the middle of the wire, there was a loop either made from a metal ring or some kind of a loop. And the horizontal threads that went from one roller to the other went through these loops. But for instance, let's say that threads 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, all the odd numbered threads went through the loops that were in square number 1. And all the even numbered horizontal threads, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20, went through the loops that were on the vertical metal strands in square number 2. So now we have two squares. Each one has 10 wires going down vertically. On each wire there is a loop. The front square has, going through the loops, threads 1 through 20 that are odd, and the second square has all the horizontal threads that are 2 to 20 even. When you raise square number 1, all the odd numbered threads go up, but the even numbered threads stay down. You now take a roll of thread and throw it across. Then you lower square number 1 and you raise square number 2. So now all the even numbered threads go up, but the odd numbered threads stay down, and the thread goes back. And so it goes back and forth, and that's how you do weaving. So Oisa Shtei Botei Nirin, making those two loops on the vertical wires, that's called Shtei Botei Nirin. Va'oirek Shtei Chutin, weaving two chutin, he's going back and forth twice. Sometimes you discover that the thread that's going back and forth is too thick, so v'hapoitzeya shnei chutin, of two of the threads you go and separate, take some of the wool off it to make it thinner. Hakaisher, then you have, sometimes you need to tie, if it tears, you need to tie a knot, v'amater, or to untie a knot. Taifer shtei tfiros, sewing 2 stitches. Hakaireya al manas litvar, tearing a garment in order to be able to sew it. Sometimes the hole is round, and a round hole is hard to sew, so you tear it and make a more elongated hole. So an elongated hole is easier to sew. And those are the 13 malachos that had to do with garments. Now we have another 7 malachos that have to do with leather. Hatzad tzvi, capturing a deer, shoichtai, slaughtering it, v'hamafshita, skinning it. Hamalchai, salting the hide, v'hama'abedes ayroi, and using other chemicals in order to tan the hide. The Gemara will tell us that salting it and tanning it really is the same. So therefore it's going to take one of these malachas out and instead put in sirtut, making a straight line. Hamamachkai, smoothing the hide, and v'hamachatchai, cutting it to size. Hakaisav shteyosi is writing 2 letters. V'hamoichik amanas lichtayv, erasing in order to write. Shteyosi is 2 letters. Habayna, construction, v'hasaiser, and demolition. Hamachaba, extinguishing a fire, v'hamaver, making a fire. Hamakeh b'patish is banging with a hammer. There's a machlokes rishonim what the malach is with bang of a hammer. According to Rashi, when you finish doing the utensil that you're making, the artisan, the craftsman, would bang with his hammer on his platform, preparing the hammer for the next malacha. Many rishonim disagree with that and say that has nothing to do with the malacha that you're making, and rather makim patish is the last hammer blow on the utensil that's being made to give it its final straighten out. And Maitzi carrying something out, Rishus Lishus, from one domain to another, like Rishus Yochel, Rishus Rabim, or vice versa. Hareelu Ovis Malachas Arbaim Chasarachas. So those are the 39 malachas. I'm now going to record this part.